When someone calls 911 and says the word bomb, they're pretty much guaranteed to get a huge response. That's how I found myself standing on the side of the road with more deputies than I'd ever seen in one place before, staring out into a mist-covered field from which George had called 911 to say that he and his teenage niece were trapped in a van with a bomb. I work as a crisis mental health professional embedded with law enforcement, and George had a history of mental health challenges. So the lead deputy tasked me with this: figure out if the bomb is real or if George is just hallucinating it. Now, I had never assessed someone in this level of crisis before, but I'm not one to back down from a challenge. So I said, "Yes, sir," pulled out my phone, and called George. As soon as George answered my call, he was begging for our help and was absolutely terrified for his life. The bomb was under his niece's seat, and if she moved, it would go off. I heard him start yelling, "Don't move, don't move!" As I was talking to George and trying to help him calm down, a new deputy showed up. He walked over, showed me his phone, where he had typed a note that said, "I'm a negotiator." I looked at him like, "Cool for you, dude, I'm busy." Frankly, I was worried he had come to replace me as the one speaking to George. I had only been on the job for 8 months, so I felt like I had something to prove. While it's common for more specialized units to take over once the first responder skill sets have been tapped, I didn't want him to step in for me and thereby imply that I wasn't doing a good enough job. Plus, this was a mental health call. This was my area of expertise, not his. He typed on his phone once more before turning it around again. "I'm here to help you." Oh, that made more sense. Together, we worked the rest of the call. He acted as a buffer between me and the deputies on scene who were peppering me with questions about George's mental state. Meanwhile, I kept talking to George about everything from the men he thought had planted the bomb to what type of tacos we liked at Taco Bell. By the way, George liked beef tacos. Eventually, George walked out of the van towards law enforcement, where they safely took him to the hospital for psychiatric care. There was no bomb, and there was no niece. It was just a very scared man experiencing psychosis alone in a van. Now let me ask you this. Would you have wanted only a law enforcement officer handling that scenario? Someone with limited mental health training, whose first priority, understandably, is the physical safety of others? Conversely, would you have wanted only a mental health professional handling it? What if the bomb was real? What if people had gotten hurt? Both law enforcement officers and mental health professionals undergo continual training to stay excellent at what they do. But in this situation, sending either option alone would have been a recipe for disaster. I thought I could handle the call by myself, but I realized it was a combination of my mental health expertise, the negotiator's skills, and patrol's tactical presence that led to George getting the help he needed. In fact, this call turned out to be my accidental audition for the SWAT team, where we continue to combine mental health and tactical dexterity in even higher risk situations. We've learned that the solution lies in pairing opposite perspectives to create more powerful outcomes. We as a society are often addicted to extremes and absolutes. Our culture of instant gratification and group identity means we pick a hill, we plant our flag, and we do our very best impression of an ostrich, shoving our heads in the sand and rejecting any idea that doesn't align with what we believe. Critical thinking is an art that's disappearing, and instead of nuance, many of us have adopted polarity. We have people shouting, "Defund the police!" and we have people shouting, "Back the blue!" You're either conservative or liberal, either masculine or feminine, and God forbid you cross sides. This isn't just about policing. It's about human thinking. If you think about our thinking, though, it makes sense, and it's not our fault that we've ended up on one extreme of a spectrum. Our brains are wired for tribalism. Social media algorithms profit from division. And when you put the two together, you get a culture that's continually pushed towards the edges. And we have our primitive ancestors to thank for that. Looking at how we evolved as a species, we humans could not make it on our own. Thousands of years ago, we needed to be part of a tribe to hunt, build shelter, and raise children. Do we seriously think anyone could have taken down a woolly mammoth by themselves? Of course not. Now, we are physically capable of living alone and never leaving our apartments thanks to takeout and online delivery. But our brains don't understand that. To them, rejection feels like a literal death sentence. The thought of speaking up against your group can be biologically terrifying because doing so risks being outcast. To our brains, that means our demise. Our ancient brains in these modern times are at a disadvantage. The internet has made it easier than ever to tell half-truths or to get a snippet of a story without the background or the context. We think we're training the algorithm by engaging with content we like, but the algorithm is actually training us by drip-feeding us polarized viewpoints. Every like, outraged comment, and flabbergasted share keeps us on the platform longer, which is social media's ultimate goal. If semi-extreme content keeps us online for 5 minutes, slightly more extreme content might keep us online for 7. So the algorithm keeps feeding us more and more of it, getting more exaggerated with each reel and TikTok we see. We end up flooded with political extremes, parenting extremes, dieting extremes, and more. I don't know about you, but if I went on one of those skinny tea cleanses, I'd get so hangry, I'd end up in jail. Regardless of how outrageous these extremes might sound, every side is screaming for your allegiance. This can make it nearly impossible for our tribal brains to say no to these ideas, or even recognize when this indoctrination is happening at all. Our primal roots mean we cling to our tribes, and our social media consumption means our tribes are slowly being pushed apart. This can make it difficult to lay down our clubs and see another's perspective, but it's imperative that we do. Going it alone can result in failure and isolation, whereas bridging different ideas frequently results in success and connection. In my job, I deal with crisis every day. People trying to take their lives, people trying to take other people's lives, and people struggling so deeply with addiction and psychosis that their lives are completely disrupted. It's in these crisis situations where intentional thinking, focused purely on positive outcomes, not identities and ideologies, is required. Back on the call with George, sending either just me as a mental health professional or just a crew of deputies could have resulted in a very different outcome for George. But because we trusted each other and turned ourselves into one cohesive body with one brain and one goal, we were able to work around our biases and find a safe end to the story none of us could have achieved on our own. It wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. It was that 1 + 1 led to opening a door to a world none of us even knew was possible. Imagine if we did that outside of crisis. If we could sit down with people different from us, with different upbringings and different beliefs, and have a conversation without yelling, dismissing, or getting defensive. Instead of entering these discussions scared of confrontation or determined to prove your point, enter with curiosity Lead with genuine questions. And get excited about where this growth can take you. It's through this approach that we save time, avoid bickering, and find more creative solutions than we ever could alone. We're obsessed with the either-or, the black and white right answer. But in reality, the best path forward is often a shade of gray. When lives are on the line, we don't pick sides, we pair opposites. If we're brave enough, we can do the same in our own lives too. Thank you.